Yeah, so copper. Actually, this is from about a couple of months ago. We've been observing copper for quite a while, and there's a very strong long-term story about the renewable applications of copper. Particularly, it's a great enabler of all the metals. Not all, but it's one of the metals you'd really pick out, particularly amongst the base metals, which is necessary to energy transition. But that story has been around for a number of years.
For sure. So why are we suddenly reinventing the story with Papa's new bag?
Well, this is the thing. That was the long-term sort of secular story, but people weren't really focusing on that until quite recently, and it was being overwhelmed by copper's other role, which is as Dr. Copper, as it used to be called, because it's the thing
the barometer of global economic growth.
Exactly. And how were people feeling about global economic growth? Not great. Particularly about China. And I think those concerns, those relatively short-term concerns about the economic outlook, and China in particular, were trumping that longer-term story. So we've been looking at it with interest, thinking, look, whenever we read the research about, which it makes a very compelling case as to why demand for copper is going to grow over the next 10 to 20 years. Supply, meanwhile, is quite constrained. It's getting harder to find, but also financial discipline amongst the copper manufacturers is actually good at the moment because they've been squeezed and funding for these sorts of projects is scarce. So you've got well-controlled supply, a long-term demand story, but people weren't thinking long-term, they were thinking short-term about global growth. Right. Now that we've seen, and actually in our traffic lights, they turned green on global growth a few months ago. We thought, right, now we can see the prospects of people worrying less about the short-term outlook for copper demand, and they'll feel better about that, which is a good in itself, but then they'll also focus on the long term.
From our side on this being Dr. Green, not Dr. Copper, thanks to some of the commodities experts. But to me, it felt like the market caught on when BHP lobbed the enormous bid for Anglo American, and everyone went, oh, really? They want copper that badly? They're going to change all of the discipline we've seen out of the business for the last number of years, and they're going to go for it in terms of acquisitions. If a deal like that gets through, and obviously there's a lot of hurdles with Anglo with its own strategy as well, if a deal like that happens, you see more consolidation in the copper space, does it have any impact in the marketplace? Yeah,
but I think it does. I mean, first and foremost, it's a validation, isn't it, of that theoretical case which has been made for some time, that demand is going to stay strong long term, and supply, I mean, why would you, as a existing miner, would you feel the need to go out and acquire somebody else's copper reserves rather than develop your own? So we
thought that about potash too back in the day when it bought potash, but that didn't do so much, did it?
Yes.
But we hope that they know what they're doing when it comes to copper.
Yeah, and I mean, so you're right in the sense that sometimes when you start to see acquisitions of this sort, it can be the peak of a cycle. I mean, that quite often happens. It doesn't feel like that this time. This has actually come surprisingly early. I mean, it was a bit of luck for us, really, in the sense that it was something, as I said, we've been watching for. We felt we had the catalyst for interest to grow in this. We didn't know that we were going to get a takeover bid like a month later in the sector, because we took a position in copper miners as one of the ways to play this, and that has been very helpful.